This podcast is sponsored by Monarch Money. Are you saving to reach your financial goals? Reaching those goals isn't just about getting more money, but by managing what you have. And the best way to manage your money? Monarch Money. Monarch Money is a new kind of finance app that's intuitive, powerful, ad-free, and takes the headaches out of budgeting. Try it free when you go to monarchmoney.com/podcast. Monarch puts all your accounts, investments, transactions, and finances at your fingertips. With a complete view of your finances, you'll gain insights on your spending and find new ways to save. Plus, Monarch lets you customize your dashboard, collaborate with your partner, set custom budgets and goals, and track your progress toward them. See why Mint users are turning to Monarch Money and loving it, and why the Wall Street Journal named Monarch Money the best budgeting app overall. Get a 30-day free trial when you go to monarchmoney.com/podcast. That's MONARCH money.com/podcast for your free trial. monarchmoney.com/podcast.
Ah, the sizzle of McDonald's sausage. It's enough to make you crave your favorite breakfasts. Enough to head over to McDonald's. Enough to make you really wish this commercial were scratch and sniff.
And if you're a sausage person, now get 2 satisfyingly savory sausage McGriddles, sausage biscuits, or sausage burritos for just $3.33. Or mix and match. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal. Single item at regular price.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Live from the back of Ruth the Realtor's car, it's the Stacking Deeds Show. I'm Ruth the Realtor's part-time mechanic neighbor Doug, broadcasting live from the spacious recording studio in the trunk of her '88 Lincoln Town Car. What are some of the hottest trends and biggest concerns in real estate investing? We'll ask an all-star panel of guests so you're in the know. First, she's the host of the Adulting is Easy podcast and a ninja at short-term rentals, Lauren Keen Aumond. And he's a tax attorney and author of the book Replace Your Income, A Lawyer's Guide to Finding, Funding, and Managing Real Estate Investments, Brian Boyd. And she's the host of the Agent Goldmine and Invest2Fi podcast, Allie Garced. Jeez, why does it sound like I'm opening an episode of The Love Connection? Anyway, and now let's turn on the cameras. Everybody, hey, look at that! We're live on YouTube. Thanks for the heads up, Joe. With 2 peeps who could pass for midlife crisis Ken and hot flash Barbie, it's Crystal Hammond and Joe Saul Seahigh.
Well, hello, midlife crisis Ken. I love that. I love that for you.
I haven't got my sports car yet, Crystal. I still haven't done that. I got that part of the midlife crisis coming. Hey, everybody. Welcome to a live recording of the Stacking Deeds podcast. She's Crystal. I'm Joe. And Crystal, we are live on YouTube. What's up with that?
Yes, this is a change from our usual format, but I'm excited about it. I mean, I know we have faces for radio, but now we have a face for YouTube, for the tube.
We do. Well, and we're not here alone. Let's meet our all-star panel today as we go over some of the hot trends in 2024, maybe some worrisome trends. Let's start with a woman who recently moved halfway across country. I wasn't sure she's going to make it. We're recording this very early, Crystal. And I was like, she's way out west. She's going to wake up at like 4 a.m. for us. Turns out that's not the case. Allie Garced's here. Allie, how are you?
I am swell, Joe. I am on my 3rd cup of coffee already. But yeah, it's nice out here in the Midwest. Never thought I'd live here, but here I am.
Okay, dear. Have you got that down yet?
Don't you know?
You betcha,
Hey, that
Allie.
wasn't too bad.
That was pretty good. Yes,
Yeah,
for
now
a
they
beginner,
know.
you're getting
They
there.
definitely know where you live now.
Well, that's fantastic. That's a beautiful city, by the way. Stacking Benjamins, our sister podcast, has one meetup group in the nation, and it's there. So you got to maybe be our special guest for that group, Allie.
Would love. That sounds like
Yes.
fun, yeah.
Well, let's talk about, because I think the most appropriate podcast that you do, because you're the busiest woman on earth, I think, is Agent Goldmine, because there's a lot going on, and we'll talk about this a little bit today. But tell me about the Agent Goldmine podcast.
The Agent Goldmine podcast is a podcast by real estate agents. Me and my business partner, Shelby Johnson, was Shelby Osborne, who's been featured on other podcasts as well. It's for real estate agents, especially those that are kind of like stuck at the 5 transactions a year that want to scale to 20, 30, 40 plus. We do a lot of solo episodes. By solo, I mean me and Shelby talking about changes that are happening within the real estate agent industry. And we interview top producing agents and we get their quote unquote secrets, like what are you doing that you're so good at it? And tell us step by step. So every episode you can implement something into your agent business.
That is so awesome. And I'm so glad you're here because with all the changes going on right now in the real estate investing world, I think that's going to be something we probably talk about today. Ooh, foreshadowing. And he's a guy who puts himself on mute because the birds are happy behind him. Brian Boyd joins us. Brian, how are you, man?
I'm well. How are you? Thanks for having me this
Good.
morning. Yeah, we've got the birds out, but I think they're starting to calm down a bit. So
I know they are. They were happy this morning.
They were.
Morale was high where you are.
Yeah.
Where are you at, Brian?
I'm just south of Nashville in Franklin, Tennessee.
Oh, beautiful town.
Oh, yeah. It's booming. I don't know if you guys have been here, but I drove downtown the other day and I think there are 12 cranes in the air. So
Wow.
The building is just going like gangbusters here.
Well, our friends Brian and Bo from the Money Guys are there. And this little guy named Ramsey is in Franklin,
Dave,
Tennessee.
yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with
Dave.
Ramsey guy.
Yeah, I am.
Is he your neighbor, Brian?
He's not my neighbor. He lives up the road, maybe about 10 minutes.
Probably a house half the size of yours.
He's one of the birds chirping in the back.
That's right.
He sent the birds.
He's always chirping, Allie.
I don't know about his square footage, but I think it's somewhere around like 15 to 20,000 square feet.
Wow.
So it's ridiculous. Yeah, I mean,
About his property.
Hey, good for him, man. Good for him.
Well, Brian, tell everybody about what you do because you are a tax attorney working with the people that listen to this podcast.
Absolutely. So I'm an investor myself, and I'm a tax attorney, real estate, and business lawyer. And I work at a firm called Thompson Burton here in the area. And quite frankly, I have clients come to me all the time about how can we reduce our tax burden? We want to, retire early. Well, most of the time, the answer is real estate. And then you have to explain how real estate works and then tax deductions on that. So that's what I do. And then when things go wrong for clients, my firm handles, real estate litigation, partnership disputes. And then if you're really in trouble with the IRS, that's when you hire somebody like me and go litigate with the Department of Justice. So that's what I do. That's my day-to-day stuff.
You know what I like, Brian? I like following you ahead of time so we don't get in trouble with the IRS. Like, let's do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because orange is just not my color, Brian. I don't know about yours, Crystal.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, this isn't a face for prison,
And last but not least, she is a ninja when it comes to short-term real estate, and she's also the voice behind the Adulting is Easy podcast. Lauren Keen Aumond's here. How are you, Lauren?
Hey, Joe, I am absolutely great, although it's getting pretty hot down here in Florida, hot and humid. But other than that, I'm good.
It is this time of year where you're like, what am I doing here? But then in January, you giggle a lot, don't you?
Yes, I do, especially when I look at the bank account from the short-term rentals in January. I'll tell you that.
Nice.
And that is awesome. Well, let's go there. Let's talk about you and your empire when it comes to short-term rentals. What does it look like these days? How's the short-term rental business, Lauren?
It's a mini empire. We are about to flip one of our units from a long-term to short-term. So very shortly here, we'll have 9 short-term rentals and 3 long-term rentals. It's just enough to keep me somewhat busy. But I also was able to leave my 9 to 5 in 2023 at the age of 33 because of the cash flow from them. So life is good.
I love, and we're going to link to past episodes that you and Allie have both been on where you've helped our deeders in the past. But I have to say, some of the systems you have around your short-term rentals and the systems you teach on Adulting is Easy they're pretty badass. What we've asked each of you to do is to bring up a topic that is big in your area, your part of the world here in 2024. Actually, you know what, Lauren, I was going to start with you, but I think we probably got to go to the elephant in the room, which I have a feeling, Allie, that there might be a topic going on with real estate professionals right now that you might be, I don't know, are you worried about this topic that I keep alluding to?
What topic? I haven't heard of it.
I thought you were calling neighbor Doug an elephant.
Wow. I didn't say it,
Oh, you're
Doug.
killing me. Oh, you kill. Stop.
Yeah. So the NAR lawsuit, it is going on. Oh, yeah. I think I've heard of something about that. I don't know.
Vague.
No, NAR lawsuit, that is like the biggest topic going on in my world right now. It affects buyers, it affects sellers, it affects buyers' agents, it affects sellers' agents, brokers, all the things. The NAR, it's still in process. Nothing is finalized yet. As of right now, May 22nd, 2024, it should be going into effect August 17th, 2024. And there are a couple of changes. We can talk about buyer side, the seller side, both, whatever you want to talk about. But the overall changes are supposed to be for more transparency in the business. More transparency for the sellers, more transparency for the buyers from their agents who may not have been so transparent before. Now, we can also talk about whether in practice it's actually going to turn into more transparency, but that could be a different topic as well.
Well, let's start off with the investment pro, and then we'll go to the real estate investor side, Allie, because the first thing that I wonder is this going to make agents better? As you know, we've got some agents in the space that are just frankly middle women, middle men, right? They're not truly doing a lot of work. And I feel like in some ways, the agents that are going to survive are going to be better because of this. Do you think that's true?
100%. Yes. Those that do not have a value proposition that they can explain to their seller, to their buyers, they're going to be out of a career.
Brian, are you seeing a change in the way that agreements are written up now that buyers, might be on the hook for some money? Are you seeing anything in that space?
It hasn't taken effect yet. In fact, piggybacking off of Allie there, it's not final, so we don't know what to write. So while it's still in process, and I believe I read up on this case, there's been a proposal for settlement. It hasn't been signed by the court yet. So we're still in this limbo area. And until the court executes the settlement agreement, it's still this miasma of what is this? So what I do think is going to happen is, to your point earlier, it's going to shake out a lot of real estate agents. Moreover, it's also going to reduce the buyer side ability to buy. So what was previously their down payment now has to be scaled back because they have to pay their agent. So, it's not quite firm yet. We don't know how to draft it. We don't know if that is actually going to be the settlement. So until that comes forward, we just don't know. But when it does, believe me, the Association of Realtors in every state is going to be very busy rewriting those forms. But for attorneys, we're just kind of sitting back and watching the court. What are they going to do? Are they going to accept it or reject it?
Joe, I just have to jump in here. Brian, we've got a lovely prize pack for you after the show because you have found today's word of the day, miasma. Congratulations.
I wrote that down too. I'm like, miasma.
That is a word that has never been uttered on any Stacking Benjamins or Stacking Deeds podcast ever. So impressed.
We need a little dinging sound, Doug. We need like a ding, 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 ding. Crystal, we got to get on that. Allie, I want to go back to you on that because Brian brings up the popular point of view, right? Which is that buyers are going to have less money. But something that I've also seen people say is that may not necessarily be true. If an agent is really good at their job, the conditions that exist now may still continue to exist. Like if this deal is going to go through, seller's still going to pay it. Is this just a negotiation point now, or are we going to see buyers that are able to come to the table with less money because they have to pay their percentage?
It's going to be a mixture, especially now with the VA, those that, I have a military background, did 10 years in the Air Force, those that, cannot pay their buyer's agent to help them purchase at this time until the VA makes any changes. They're going to have to go to the listing agent. They're going to have to work out something else. Now the VA is most likely going to change something very fast should this come into effect August 17th. But overall, I'm also a little bit of a conspiracy theorist too. I think this is we're seeing the divide between the rich and the poor right before our eyes. Who is going to be able to continue purchasing properties? Not the first time home buyer anymore. So who is? The big companies. Mm-hmm. So if you can purchase property now, I tell everyone, and if this sounds terrible coming from a real estate agent, but I'm like, buy a property now, own some land. But overall, the sellers now no longer have to pay. They never really had to. But now on some MLS that they do not have to pay anything toward buyer's agents to compete with them. They no longer have to pay a buyer's agent to then negotiate a lower price on the house that they're selling. So the buyers that can fill that extra cost by purchasing, coming up with the closing costs and coming up with their buyer's agents are going to succeed. The agents that can negotiate, because as of right now, there still might be a way to add it toward the seller concession. So a good buyer's real estate agent will say, well, we can make a purchase agreement for something of a little bit higher price or, an appropriate sales price, and then just have more seller concession. Out of those seller concessions, this is what my compensation is going to be, again, but compensation is always negotiable. So there are a lot of changes, and it's interesting that, again, as of right now, being that it's going to start in effect August 17th, we don't know what's going to happen until that day. And starting that day, that's when it's going to happen. So there is no buffer time. So we have to learn how to work with buyers, how to work with sellers, and sellers and buyers need to know how to best put themselves in the best position.
Ellie, you want something to add to your coffee? It sounds like you need a drink.
No, not at all. Not at all.
There's nothing going on. Well, between this big change on your plate and Brian, to your point, no idea what to draft. I'm just seeing all this chaos currently. Lauren, let's bring you into this discussion because, you're one of those potential buyers. This finalizes, does this change your strategy as a buyer? Does it change the way that you go in and make offers?
I am blessed that if we need to pay a buyer's agent, we have the finances to do that. On the sell side, I have a property listed right now. We just listed it. Part of the reason we listed it now versus later in the year is because of the potential upcoming changes. And we are offering commissions to both buyer's agents and our agent. So I think probably from the sell side, I will keep doing that. I don't think that I want people to be incentivized to come look at my property. And the best way to do that is to pay the buyer's agents. As long as other people are doing that, that's my plan. On the buy side, if I have to pay an agent, I will. And if it means there's less buyers out there I'm competing with, good for me. But I will say, Allie, I totally agree with you that I would not want to be a first-time home buyer right now. I have a lot of, my cousins, my sister just turned 21. There's a group out there that will not be able to afford homes coming up soon. So I agree with you. Also, I just wanted to say that.
Hey, but Goldman Sachs can. So
can I just say something here about first-time home buyers? Look, this isn't 1980 and, we're not buying houses for $70,000 anymore, but you can. And yeah, you may not be able to live in downtown Nashville, but you know where you can live? You can live 45 minutes out and you can drive in. There are cities in Tennessee that have houses for under $100,000. So, this whole thing I can't buy a house, investors are buying up all the properties. That's not true. That's just patently false. And statistically, if you look at across the country, there are homes that are available. They just don't want to live there. That's fine. I can buy a house 45 minutes out, a 3-2 on half an acre. Great. But I have to drive in. It's what's called a starter home. Yeah, you work your way up. You don't get to buy the $1.5 million house on 1.25 acres. You don't get that. It's why it's a starter home. So all this, roiling out there about not being able to be a first-time home buyer because the investors are buying up everything or, it's too expensive. No, it's not. You just have to find the right place to go.
No, I think that's always been the case, right, Brian? But I also think, I'm not sure that was the point. I think it was much more. This doesn't make it easier for a first-time home buyer. It means if you're listening to this show and you are a first-time home buyer, there's a little more work to do than there was before this.
Yeah, but if you're a first-time home buyer, you also probably qualify for an FHA loan, which only requires 3.5% down as opposed to 10% or 15 or 20% down. So, on a $100,000 house, 3.5% down is, let's do the math. It's $3,500. It's not a lot of money.
Well, let's stick with you and pivot to what's going on in the real estate attorney world. What is a big 2024 thing going on in your world, Brian?
So this is something I've really been looking at a lot lately. It's the legislation that's been proposed to eliminate the 1031 exchange and increase the capital gains rate. It's never been successful. But if they raise capital gains from where it is now, 20 to 22% or 15 to 22%, all the way up to what could possibly be 44.6%, and eliminate capital gains, I think you're going to see a lock-in effect in the market. I don't anticipate it passing. I don't think it'll get through Ways and Means. Who knows? But it's really something my clients have started calling about. Like, what do you know about this? Is it going to happen? What do we do? And my answer to them is, well, we could sell now and you can do the 1031 now. Or if it does pass, we'll have a lock-in effect and we could hold during this period, or we can do a slow man's 1031 out of it and try to recover that way. But that's really what's going on right now in my world as a real estate attorney and a tax lawyer and an investor, because it's a big deal. Like, you go from 20% to 44.6 and you eliminate the 1031 exchange. That's a big hit. And a lot of investors or even home buyers, this is their nest egg for retirement later on. So if you wipe out half of it with capital gains like that, it's substantial. It really is substantial.
This is an interesting topic to me, Brian, mostly because not just on this show, but also on Stacking Benjamins, like there always seems to be some legislation that's right around the corner, right? Something that's on the way that investors get worried about. Lauren, this potential change, it obviously, if you're a real estate investor, could worry a lot of people. Are you worried that we're going to see a change in the capital gains tax?
The capital gains tax, that would be definitely a huge problem for people. And I think Brian's right, because what are you going to do? You're not going to sell. You're going to try to just hold that property, hold that single family home that you may have traded up into a duplex, triplex, quad, small apartment building. You may have given that home, put it back on the market for one of those first time home buyers to buy. Instead, you're going to hold on to it, die, get your step up basis and pass it on to your relatives. So that's the problem there. To do it in tandem and also get rid of the 1031 exchange at the same time, I guess I can understand doing one or the other. I talk to my friends in Canada all the time. They wish they had something like the 1031 exchange, which they don't. So if that went away, I would say, we would be just on par with other countries. But this capital gains thing at the same time is really just a double whammy. And we need to be incentivized to trade up because we want to open up those new properties for other investors or families.
Let me just say this. It's interesting that they're not saying anything about 721s. They're not saying anything about Delaware statutory trusts. They're not saying anything about family limited partnerships. So there's still mechanisms out there that real estate investors and tax attorneys can use to get around all this. But the point remains, and I think Lauren is absolutely correct. If you do this in tandem, you are going to see a market drop like you haven't seen since 2007, 2008. Nobody's going to be selling. Inventory is going to plummet. And, we've seen over COVID what happens when inventory plummets. Property values spike. That doesn't help anybody. I don't think it could possibly pass because the economic impact to the country would be devastating.
Allie, is the real estate pro community talking about this?
As far as real estate agents or
yes,
my investing side?
No. Well, let's talk about both, but I was talking about agents.
Those that work with 1031, I mean, I've only ever done one. We're not talking about this too much as far as the 1031. I feel like it's been brought up before and it didn't pass. So I don't know. But as far as the 1031 stuff, I have not touched.
It is interesting. The specter of future legislation always just kind of drives me crazy. When I was a financial planner, I would have people in my office that would just focus on it. They'd get so focused, it would paralyze them. And I think, Brian, for me, the takeaway is if you're going to do a real estate deal, make your best deal now. I mean, is that what you're thinking?
Well, not necessarily, because there are ways to get around all this stuff and you just have to think outside the box. So as a real estate investor, I did a 1031 last month and we switched from a triplex in Knoxville, Tennessee to a short-term rental in Nashville, Tennessee. And it was fairly easy. But if that 1031 mechanism hadn't been there, I would have done the exact same thing and I would have taken the hit, but I would have wiped out that hit with a cost segregation study, bonus depreciation, and I would have still gotten the same effect later on down the road for my tax return.
And by the way, if people want to hear more about the cost segregation studies, Crystal, we had a great interview about that earlier this spring, diving into that for our new dealers that have no idea what Brian's talking about there. Huge advantage, Brian, to get that done.
Yeah. We went from a property we purchased for $263,000. We sold it for $400,000, and we bought an $800,000 short-term rental. So we scaled, and the property revenue is projected to go from like $33,000 a year up to $120,000 a year. So it's a big move for our needle.
Lauren, you're very lucky. We gave you time to stretch out and really bring it. The bar is high, Lauren. The bar is very high because we're waiting for the last one, which we know is going to be all fireworks, unicorns, and rainbows. But we're going to make people wait for that because halfway through this discussion, we want to make sure that, Doug, you give everybody the pop quiz.
Everybody's favorite part of the show, Joe. Hey there, Deeters. I'm Ruth's wrench-wielding repair guru, neighbor Doug. Now that summer's officially here, many of you will be gassing up your family trucksters, strapping Aunt Edna up on the roof and hitting the road, to check out property values in other states. And based on numbers and stuff, it looks like almost every one of you will find your way to a national park because since 1904, the U.S. national parks have received over 16 billion visitors. Lauren, I was thinking maybe like a nice 2-bedroom would look good next to Old Faithful. We'll talk later. While national parks had already been a thing for like 20 years, it was on May 28, 1892, that John Muir and his naturalist brethren decided to form a group called the Sierra Club. And they did it for one very specific purpose: to prevent the U.S. government from reducing the size of a famous national park. So let's make that today's Property Pop Quiz. Which jaw-dropping U.S. national park was almost reduced in size? I'll be back right after I go form a club to prevent Ruth from switching to a tiny foreign import to save on gas. I hear she's shopping for a 95 Subaru. A hatchback! Where the hell am I going to put my mic in the back of that thing? Wait, don't answer.
Crystal, we're talking with this brilliant team today about benefits, but one benefit that people can give themselves is better property management. And we've mentioned a ton of property management softwares that are out there, but let's give people 3 reasons why the one we're about to mention is different. First, software alone doesn't really solve your problem.
And that's why Hemlane's property management provides 24/7 repair coordination. That's right. You can either use your own service professionals or you can tap into their licensed network. Notice I said licensed network.
Right. No, that's a good point. And we talked earlier in the show about it. Don't ask how, ask who. And Hemlane definitely knows who the who's are. Second, many of you are investing out of state. So Hemlane connects you with licensed leasing agents and other tenant placement services to help you find and place a tenant.
And then third, Hemlane is ranked #1 by Gartner with 4.8 star reviews.
Wow.
So they're legit. Yeah, I know when I'm looking for food, if it's 4.5 and under, I'm not touching the restaurant.
Yeah. When you see the sign that says discount sushi, you're like, no, probably not. Not 2 words that go together. Manage your rental properties with 100% transparency and control without the administrative work through Hemlane. They offer everything from advertising your rental to over 30 rental websites to automatic rent collection and late fees. Best of all, you can tap into their network for a more hands-off and remote experience. Hemlane will increase your satisfaction and your cash flow with your rental properties.
So visit www.hemlane.com and don't forget to mention to tell Hemlane that you heard about them through Stacking Deeds. Hemlane will dramatically improve your property management.
We talk about Hemlane because of the fact that we believe in them very much, to the point that we have an affiliate deal with them. So if you'd like to help the show and help yourself, make sure when you go to hemlane.com, you tell them what Crystal you just said.
Yep.
Please tell them Stacking Deeds
sent you.
We should have coordinated that.
Hey there, Deaners. I'm national outdoorsman and parkour champion, Ruth's mechanic neighbor Doug. Before the break, we were talking about U.S. national parks. That's the royal we, by the way. It was truly just me. If that confused you, you may not have the grasp of the English language you think you do. In 1872, Yellowstone was established as the nation's first national park. It sparked a huge naturalist movement in the U.S. that included John Muir and his gang of do-gooders. In 1892, they formed the Sierra Club in San Francisco, largely because they found out that the U.S. government was hoping to play a new game called Honey, I Shrunk the National Park to one iconic property. And that was today's Property Pop Quiz. Which park was the Sierra Club focused on leaving as is? The answer is Yosemite National Park in Northern California. You probably figured that out as soon as I said San Fran, didn't you? Yeah, you're smart like that. And deal with it, San Fran people. We're going to call the city San Fran just to see that vein bulge in the top of your forehead. In 1889, Muir was instrumental in drawing up the park's boundaries and proposing its preservation to the U.S. government, who quickly agreed. Later, in 1892, when he heard they may make the park smaller, he said, "Oh, hell no!" And he put a stop to it. And he said it exactly like that, pretty sure. Yeah. And now let's get back to the ragtag group of real estate ne'er-do-wells on today's Roundtable.
Wonderful.
Yes. And Crystal, over on Stacking Benjamins, every time we have said San Fran, we get people writing in angry. You don't call it San Fran. Oh, yes, we do. You know why? Because you wrote in. Now we're going to poke you because we know.
Bear.
Crystal, you have any brothers, sisters?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yes. And do they do that to you or do you do that to them? Just poke them?
Like, especially in the car, your arm is touching my arm. Like, that was the best. Yes. Or trying to record. Back in the day, remember when we had to record songs, like wait for it to come on the radio? I used to try to record songs and my brother would sing over me trying to record.
Of course.
Fun times.
Brian will tell you as a lawyer, he is contractually obligated to do that as a brother. I think yes. Brian, is that true?
I
think that's
I
contract
actually
law.
hogtied my brother once and threw him into a fold-up couch. So, yeah.
Is the statute of limitations over on that?
Yeah. Well, I was a minor at the time, so it would have been sealed anyway. So, yeah.
So before we move to the short-term rentals, I did want to go backtrack a little bit just on buyer's agents, because I'm glad Brian brought this up and Allie brought it up about like the negotiation is key. And that is funny that Brian said a $70,000 property, because that's what I bought my first property at. But negotiation is what made it more affordable, because we talked to Bernice Ross about down payment assistance programs. Yeah. And there's reports that there are areas of the country where home sales are through the roof just because, you know, the prices are there. And we always say, look for a good deal. So maybe that's where buyer's agents are really going to have to show that, hey, you just can't look on Zillow to replace me to save on commissions. It's up to me to bring you the best negotiation power. I know what sellers need or what numbers would work to move that needle. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Allie?
When working with buyers, I mean, of course, everyone just, their default is always Zillow. As much as we want it to be our own website with IDX, it's Zillow. Regardless, though, how it's going to go is the buyers will say, I'm considering this property. What does this property look like? Before agents can even show them a property, they have to talk about agency. They have to talk about how I am not working for free. You know, like a lot of agents used to say, oh, we use a buyer's agent. We're free. No, you're getting paid. So we have to talk about that. We have to talk about, and we have to have a buyer's agency in place before I even show you a house. Everyone, no matter what state you're in, and that should have been done, but not all states required that. Some states always did. So before we go into that, buyers already know they're going to have a sit down with at least one agent and talk about, before I even view a house, how is the money going to work? You know, how much is the compensation? Can we negotiate this? How much? You know, all the things. And then once they find a house, it's up to the buyer's agent to then call the listing agent, because otherwise, previously it would have been in the MLS saying seller will pay, you know, buyer's agent, say 3%. There is no standard. So now the buyer's agent will have to call the listing agent and say, Is your seller compensating anything toward the buyer's agent? Is this up for negotiation? Can we negotiate something? And then bring that back to the buyer for each property, which is totally fine. That's what buyer's agents should be doing anyways, establishing a relationship with the listing agent to get their offer accepted. You get way more with honey than you do with vinegar. So being nice, schmoozing them up, like, is there any way that the seller can compensate anything toward buyer's agent? And if not, or whatever the answer is, bring that back to the buyer. Is that going to work with your numbers? Will you be able to pay the remainder of my compensation? Let's negotiate more, all of that. For investors that are maybe finding properties on Zillow or just have like one-offs, but do not yet have a relationship with a trusted agent that they like, a lot of states will be incorporating, if they don't already now, have a like one property showing. So it'll be one form saying, I know we're complete strangers. Let's see if we're a good fit, because you might not like me. I might not like you. It might not be a good fit. So let's just have a contract, not a contract, but an agency for one showing. I'll show you this one house on 123 Apple Street. And during that time, we'll talk about, the house, we'll talk about my background, your background, and just see if we're a good fit. From
Test
there,
drive.
Yep, exactly. From there, we can talk about actually working together.
And Allie, that would be because I think some buyers are going to be thinking, well, I'm just going to go to the listing agent directly. But that's a situation where the listing agent would still need to sign that agreement with a potential buyer just for that one property, right?
Exactly. Yes. And a lot of buyers might think, I'll just go to the listing agent instead. At that point, it becomes a dual agency. So a dual agency is the agent no longer has the fiduciary duty to the client. Once an agent goes from representing either just a buyer or just a seller to being dual, representing both, the only thing they have to abide by is confidentiality. So as a listing agent and a buyer comes up to me and says, hey, I don't want to pay for a buyer's agent. I'd rather just work with you directly. I no longer have all the fiduciary duties, which is like the reasonable care. I only have confidentiality. So, follow this down a couple of years down the road where I don't have to disclose everything. Of course, material fact, yes, but I don't have to disclose everything that I would have had I just worked with you as a buyer's agent only. That might end up in more lawsuits later on down the road because buyers didn't know what they were getting into because dual agency didn't need to disclose that.
I want to go back to that discussion, though, as you're defining the relationship, because I think this is important, whether you're an investor or you're a real estate pro, like whatever your role is. And the reason why you're here, stoicism has been all the rage lately, but I really, really like the stuff by Sun Tzu as much as Marcus Aurelius. And one of the things that from Sun Tzu, The Art of War, that I really like, Allie, that I think you allude to is define the battlefield ahead of time, is the quote that they use. Like, whether you're an agent or you're an investor, sitting down with the people you work with, the pros you work with, and having that discussion ahead of time. So you define, where are we actually having this quote fight? I think is hugely important up front. Like, getting all that out ahead of time is going to give you the ability then to completely trust your pros or trust your client and then win at the end of the day.
I agree 100%. That's why it's so important, especially now as an investor, to make sure that you have an agent that you trust, so that way you can work with them directly. And as an agent, you need to show your worth now more than any time before, like you have to show exactly what you're doing for your buyers, what you're doing for your sellers. Otherwise, you're going to be out of business.
Brian, I don't know if you even deal with this part of the real estate world, which is conflicts between people that haven't had those discussions with their real estate pro, or real estate pros fighting over commissions. Do you deal with that part of the world? And do you think the settlement might change that game?
I do deal with those conflicts, but to your point about the settlement, I really think the settlement's going to shake out a lot of the lower tier real estate agents, the people that are, and I'm not talking about their character or anything like that. I'm talking about the people that sell 1 or 2 or 3 houses a year just to keep their license. Those that are true professionals, and, I have 2 real estate agents here in Nashville, and these guys look at numbers, they run statistics, they're constantly educating themselves about the markets. I think it's going to elevate the game of real estate agents in and of itself. But to your point about the conflict there, I think what you're going to see is there's going to have to be a middle ground where the seller is going to have to give some concessions to the buyer, because otherwise houses are just going to sit a lot longer and you're going to see prices drop. But the conflict between the agents, I think it's going to be a good thing for the market as a whole. It's going to be a race to the top instead of what has consistently been a race to the bottom for probably the last 30, 40 years, where you basically just need a pulse to take that test and call yourself a real estate agent. So you're going to see an elevation in the game of real estate agents. And when you elevate the game, those agents are the ones that are going to come to you and explain, what is agency? Let me explain that to you. Mm-hmm. Let me explain what my obligations to you are. And we can negotiate that now. And we need to negotiate that now. So I think it's going to be a good thing for real estate agents as a whole. And I think you're going to see real estate agents as a profession become more of a skilled relationship person, on par with like an accountant, an architect, a lawyer, a doctor.
Yeah.
They're going to be people.
Which is funny, Brian, because on the top end, it already is, right? On the top end, it totally is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have 2 agents here in town. They both work at Compass. And, when I ask them for, hey, show me where the hot spots are to invest, they pull up data and they send me data. And so I'm looking at, real-time data with numbers, revenues, things like that, previous sales within, 10, 15, 20 days even. And they're really good at it. And it's been amazing for our portfolio. But if you're just going to your neighbor, Susie, who, she sells a house here and there, she can sell a house for you or help you buy a house. That's not who you're going to have anymore. Susie's not going to be a real estate agent because brokers aren't going to carry their license anymore if not generating. So I think it's good for the market as a whole. And to Allie's point, it will elevate the game.
Definitely agree. Well, now main event. Well, not main event. We're all main events here.
We have goosebumps.
Lauren, and short-term rentals, the Airbnb game. So what's hot right now? Which it's always hot, I think.
No pressure at all here. Did you guys know that Airbnb on April 30th disallowed indoor cameras for the first time? April 30th, 2024. Are you aware of that?
That's late.
Oh, Doug's got to take all his down.
Thanks for the heads up.
Well, just to tell everybody what's going on, Doug doesn't have them in his houses, Lauren. He's got them all pointed at him and then got them out on the internet. So,
all right. We'll have to put Doug's OnlyFans link in the show notes.
Yeah, it's interesting that they're just now getting to that. I don't know what was the instigation for this rule change, but we have them on the outside of our Airbnbs, and that's fine because we need to keep the property safe. But on the inside, I've always thought that was a little creepy.
Definitely can be creepy. It's more of a gray area once I really started to think about it, because you think indoor camera's bad, right? Because you're picturing like pointed at the toilet, right? Probably is what you're thinking, right? Room. And undisclosed. Airbnb has always required you to disclose all cameras, but there are some situations, especially being, a woman, I'm thinking, what if I do a home share and I'm renting out the bedrooms, but the kitchen is a shared space, right? No more cameras there. What if I wanted to put a camera inside a locked closet so that if a bunch of stuff goes missing, or a locked bedroom, I can then know who broke in and who took that stuff? Those are gone now.
You can't even disclose it and have it. You just can't have
not anymore. You could before April 30th. And I read this too. That includes disconnected cameras. You can't even have a camera in there that is unplugged, which I thought was really interesting. I guess because it might not be, right? But so anyways, that just happened. You always had to disclose, Brian. We have cameras at all of our short-term rentals as well, and we've disclosed every location of them. We did get one listing shut down one time because we weren't specific enough. We said we had outdoor cameras. We did not disclose that they recorded at all times, right? So, which I thought would be kind of self-explanatory, and they found out that, because there was a 16-year-old birthday party and there were drugs involved. And so we had to use the footage to get these people kicked out. And so
Wow.
that's how Airbnb kind of found out. And they shut us down as a result of that for only about 24 hours. We just disclosed everything and moved on. But just a very interesting thing. I think it will make guests breathe a lot easier. But, if there were hidden, or let me be generous, undisclosed indoor cameras, is this rule going to stop that? I'm not really sure, but that's just something that I wanted to bring up because cameras have always been a hot topic for short-term rentals.
I wouldn't think so though, Lauren. I mean, if you're not disclosing it now.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, so there's that. And the other thing that they did in terms of cameras for outdoor is if there's an expectation of privacy, like in a sauna or an outdoor shower, you can't have cameras there. They've specified that, which makes sense. I didn't see anything about jacuzzis. So, but again, this is more of a gray area. I think people think, oh, good, finally, how could they have not done this sooner? But there's this idea of host protection, especially in home share situations or asset protection or protection from other guests. If you were renting a room and there's a guest renting another room, there's not going to be any footage if there is some sort of altercation between you and them inside of the home. Or if somebody's maybe entering your space while you're gone, there's not going to be evidence of that if you're in some of these home shares. So I think overall, I hope guests feel better, but there's a little more gray area to it than people think.
What about, Lauren, the changing world of municipalities and short-term rentals? Any new news in that area?
Yeah, I thought about making that my topic, but it's so location specific. We just saw that in Houston. We've seen it in Austin. In Florida, where I operate, there was a law passed in 2011 that said whatever your rules are your rules. And so we have a lot more, I think, clarity in our different areas than a lot of states do because we passed this state law. I mean, that's another one where in a town here and a couple of the towns here in the Tampa Bay area, they have very long short-term rental minimums. And of course, people just kind of break them and list anyways. But the town, I've spoke to some people at these towns and they're like, I wish we could shorten it, but they can't do that. So, there's some situations where people, I think some municipalities wish they had longer minimum stays in effect in 2011. There's some that wish they had shorter minimum stays in effect in 2011.
Wow.
But what I tell people that want to get in this space is don't buy a property, don't underwrite your numbers simply as a short-term rental. Have a backup plan other than selling as a long-term rental. At least make sure you break even. And I think that should pretty much, CYA for when municipalities change their rules. But I really don't think you should go in to a market on purpose that it's not allowed and decide to operate illegally and just kind of cross your fingers and hope that it becomes allowed.
Boy, that's some good advice, Lauren.
Yeah.
That's a hot take right there. Do not operate illegally, Dieters.
I was born in St. Petersburg, Florida, and the amount of people that I see in online Facebook groups that are selling all of their furniture, can you believe the city shut me down? I'm like, yeah, 30-day minimums, always been that way. Why are you surprised? So.
But it sounds like, I think the takeaway here is it's becoming more location dependent than ever. Some municipalities go one way and others go another way. If you're doing short-term rentals, you got to really be up on what's happening in your city.
Yeah, you need to know, you need to get involved. If you are, I know, Allie, you probably are plugged into this. A lot of the real estate agents are very plugged into what is happening around. So if you have a good relationship with a real estate agent, they should also be the type of person that could tell you what's going on. Or your lawyer, Brian, give you some props here. Perhaps you have a lawyer that's keeping up with some of this pending legislation and things like that. But that's very location specific. And if you have the backup plan, I think you'll be okay. It just depends too when you want to think about diversification. It's in investing, we want to diversify, right? We think about that with stocks all the time, but with real estate, you have to wonder, is it better to be diversified in these different areas so that if one municipality changes, I'm in okay shape? That means I just have one building. Maybe I've got to take from short-term to long-term, but then you're also diversifying your teams. You need a cleaner in all these different areas, handyman in all these different areas. And that's really important too. So that's just something to think about as well.
Brian, do you work much with short-term rentals?
Yeah. So everything from litigation with, local municipalities over those kind of code issues to, helping people set up their own short-term rentals, giving them the contracts, things like that. But we have 4 ourselves, so we're pretty well versed on it. We also have long-term single family and multifamily. So like she was saying, we're diversified. But handling short-term rentals, it really is city specific. Like you can see what's going on in Las Vegas, Clark County. There's massive litigation going on in federal court out there that the short-term rental owners are winning. And then you look at places like Dallas that, in December has eliminated. It's really interesting. But again, to Lauren's point, don't go into an area where they don't allow it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Another hot take.
Well, the important thing is like you look at the tax code and under Treasury Reg 1.469-1T, the short-term rental loophole, it's 7 days or less. So if you go into an area that requires 30-day minimums, that's considered midterm, but it's actually long-term. It's how it's treated. But don't go into an area where it's not allowed. I mean, then you're going to pay somebody like me and you're going to lose a lot of money because it's not a winnable position. It's just not. Don't be dumb.
I want to go just around very quickly and get a very short answer from each of you on this, which is, I think another ongoing story we've had the year plus, Crystal, that you and I have been doing this show, is the forest fire in office space, right? Rentals, office space, ownership. Ellie, let's start with you. Office space beginning to become an opportunity, or do we have a long way still to fall?
I do not follow commercial. I don't invest personally. As an agent, I don't work with commercial. So I feel like I'm not qualified to talk about it.
Just like
I have
hard
no
pass.
idea.
Nice job. Yeah. I'm going to go to Brian last because I think he may have a big take here. But Lauren, you've been following the commercial space at all?
Only very tangentially. Commercial is so much more complicated than residential. And sometimes we talk about commercial as just large apartment buildings, anything or 5 and larger. But we're talking about commercial space in terms of retail or office space.
Yeah.
I think they've got a ways to fall. I think we haven't fully disrupted from the e-commerce perspective. I think the work from home trend is here to stay. I think there's a chance some of it bounces back. I mean, we're already seeing, some office to residential conversions and other uses for that space. So I think it's possible that there's an opportunity there. I think it's too much risk for somebody to get into right now that doesn't know a lot, like is not intimately familiar about commercial real estate and traffic flows and growth of the area, the local economy, what jobs are coming, what jobs are going, what's the socio-demographics of that area, socioeconomic demographics. Without having very, very deep understanding, it's not an area that I would get into right now.
I know that conversion at first blush looks like such an opportunity, Lauren, but to your point, it's so much work.
Yeah.
I mean, everything
The
from
details.
zoning laws to
It's so much work. And my husband's a life safety engineer. So they do like the egress, so people don't burn up in buildings and stuff. And those office to residential conversions are very complicated from that perspective too, from what I've heard across the hall on phone.
Brian, office space.
Personally, I would invest in it. I think it's a great opportunity right now for REITs and syndication deals, especially where I am. Nashville is just exploding, and we've been exploding. And I've got clients that are, putting millions into that. But as a retail investor, I would stay away from it until prices stabilize a little bit more. I don't think we're going to see that stabilization until after the election.
That's interesting though, Brian. What you're saying is for the bigger investor who's got deep pockets, they're getting in a little early because they know at some point this is coming back.
Absolutely. And I think the work from home phase is going to transition out and people are going to say, get back to the office. That's why we have an office.
Or let me
Because
get
quite
out of the
frankly,
house. Yeah.
Yeah. My wife is a field-based employee, so she's always had a home office, but me being an attorney, I can work from the house if I want to. But, we have like 3 offices. We have a Nashville office, a Franklin office, and a Huntsville office. And so they want us in the office, to meet with clients, to meet with the other attorneys. And, I think there's going to be a massive push to get back into the office. So until that stabilizes a little bit more. I would say as a retail investor, unless you have the money and you want to put it in now, I'd stay away from it.
I love the fact you and Lauren both saying there might be easier ways to invest in other, closer to the vest opportunities. I think it's a great place for us to leave it today, Crystal. Man, some great takes you guys had. Thank you so much for mentoring our Deeters. Let's find out what's going on with all of you, because you guys always have such awesome stuff going on. Allie, let's start with you. What's something big you haven't disclosed anywhere else yet that you can, this is like the big news for our Deeters? Yes.
The big news, like in my business?
In your business, on either the podcast, like what's something hot going on with Allie right now?
Ice cream flavors.
Oh, Haagen-Dazs coffee every time. That is Haagen-Dazs coffee, 100%. So I have moved to St. Paul. I'm getting my license here in Minneapolis, St. Paul. I'm starting a team out here of agents. We're up to a little over 60 agents worldwide. Nice. Because now we are in 3 countries. And so if you're a real estate agent that is stuck at 5 transactions, we can get you to 20. Easy. We have a whole checklist.
And as you have heard today, Allie's slightly good at educating people and helping them get from point A to point B. Yes. And if they want to get a hold of you, Allie, best place to go is the Agent Goldmine.
Theagentgoldmine.com. That's where we have a lot of resources for real estate agents to help their clients build their business. I have a YouTube channel. It's Allie the Agent. And that's probably the best. Yeah, Allie the Agent, really on all social media. I'm on Instagram all the time. Allie the Agent. Allie spelled A-L-I.
I feel sad. You're never doing anything. You're just sitting around with your feet up.
Yeah.
Nothing happening. Lauren, thanks so much for joining us again. Besides sweating it out in St. Pete, what's going on at Adulting is Easy?
Oh, lots of good stuff. So Adulting is Easy is personal finance with a little bit of a real estate tilt. Got shouted out in Kiplinger's recently, which was pretty cool.
Awesome.
Ooh.
That's not Stacking Deeds exclusive. Let's see, Stacking Deeds exclusive. I haven't told anybody that my friend, she went out on her own about a year ago designing closets for people. And I'm thinking about partnering with her in that business. I love the interior design that I get to do for my short-term rentals. I love furnishing and decorating and all of that. But I don't really want to create another whole business for myself because of all of them that I already have. And so thinking about kind of partnering up with her and helping her sell and design some closet. That's
you had your first client right here.
I know.
I still have boxes.
Studio.
I'm unpacking. I need your help.
That and home offices is what she focuses on. So I'm slowly learning the closet terminology and I'm going to start shadowing her soon. So there you go. Some exclusive information for you, but that's kind of outside of Vacation Nature Coast, Adulting is Easy, House Money Media, and my husband's engineering firm.
Yeah, you've got nothing going on either. Allie?
There's closet terminology aside from the word just like shelf.
It is insane. Like side walls and all the decks and valet rods. It's way more complicated than I thought.
I just throw stuff and I hope it stays closed when I close it.
I know.
Like,
I'm like, maybe I'm a bad candidate for designing closets because my house is 1901 and it has like 0 closets. I just have like armoires everywhere. But
I got to admit that besides the pricing, I walk into the Container Store with like a drool cup because I walk around I don't know what it is about like, organizational tools. I would probably be a hoarder of organizational tools. Like just stacks of places to organize stuff. Not good.
And then you'll have to be on that show and they'll make you get rid of all your shelves.
Does it spark joy, Lauren? Does it spark joy? Right. Brian, thanks so much for joining us, man. This was a ton of fun.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed everybody.
Well, I heard, man, you just might have written a book about this topic. Say it ain't so.
I did. I wrote a book called Replace Your Income, a lawyer's guide to finding, funding, and managing your real estate investments. But I've also got, a TikTok channel, an Instagram channel where I give tax tips and real estate tips on almost a daily basis. I also have a link in my bio where there are documents that, you don't have to pay a lawyer to draft. I already drafted them. You can just go get them. Moreover, I've started doing seminars for real estate agents because I think a lot of real estate agents don't have the necessary education background to talk to their investors about 1031s, cost segregation studies, depreciation, bonus depreciation, how to hold their investments, things like that. So we've got one coming up in August 13th at the Nashville School of Law. And, there is CE credit available for real estate agents to attend that. So, I've started getting more into the education space with my real estate. I think it should be available to everybody because it is the number one wealth creation tool in this country. And I want everybody to be successful. There shouldn't be any losers in this situation. And quite frankly, if price is a problem, let me help you find an agent that can find you the right property. And, I just want it to be available to everybody because this is not only for me, it's for my son and it's for his children. And as you move forward, this is how you create wealth.
It truly can be a legacy, which is a powerful thing. Brian, it's funny. I love watching the tips that you give on Instagram, like Allie and Lauren. But I got to say, I moved over to watch you on TikTok. You don't do any of the dances, man. What's up with that?
Zero rhythm. Yeah.
Two left feet.
No. I mean, two left feet, like probably three left feet. Yeah, I mean, it's bad. You don't want to see me dance. It's not a good thing.
Well, thanks to everybody for joining us today.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks to everyone on YouTube joining us. This is the first time that we've done a show on YouTube, and we're going to leave this up. So if you want to watch the show live and see Brian, Allie, and Lauren, and neighbor Doug, Crystal, and me, just go over to the Stacking Benjamins YouTube channel. But Crystal, how do we get the show notes?
Head to stackingdeeds.net/show notes. See, and they appear like magic in your inbox.
Bam. We have our little magical unicorns deliver them directly to your inbox.
Written by me.
All right. Big thanks to Brian, Allie, and Lauren, and Crystal.
And us. Big thanks to us.
You. Yes.
Hello.
Doug, take it from here, man. What's on our takeaway list for today's show?
So what should we do based on what we learned today? First, take some advice from Allie and Lauren. While the new changes in agent commissions are supposed to go into effect later in 2024, don't let that impact your investment plans. If you found a great property that fits into your portfolio, go for it. Second, while there may be some upcoming changes to tax law that might impact real estate investing, take this advice from Brian and Joe and always think creatively to get the best net impact on your real estate empire. But the big lesson? Just like national parks, when it comes to car trunks, bigger is always better. Hey Ruth, let's take a look at that 61 Continental over there. I could fit a dance floor in that trunk. Thanks to Lauren Keen Aumond for joining us today. You can find out more about her show, Adulting is Easy, wherever you're listening to us right now. Thanks also to Brian Boyd for joining us. Check out his hot new book, Replace Your Income, A Lawyer's Guide to Finding, Funding, and Managing Real Estate Investments, wherever hot new books are sold. And because we saved the best for last, thanks to Allie Garced for joining us. Find our friend Allie at the Agent Goldmine podcast if you're in the biz, wherever top podcasts are found, like this one. Hey, you know what? Of course, we'll link to everyone in our show notes at stackingdeeds.net/show notes. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor Doug saying, may your property lines be straight and the numbers in your rent checks be crooked and full of commas. We'll see you back here next time on Stacking Deeds.
How do you keep your edge? With the cutting-edge design of the stylish Lexus RX, it's second nature. Never lose your edge with the Lexus RX.
Lease the 2024 RX 350 Premium all-wheel drive for $539 a month for 36 months with $49.99 due at signing.
Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer.
Call 1-800-USA-LEXUS for important lease offer and pricing details. Not all customers will qualify. Offer available in the Eastern area only and ends June 3rd, 2024.
At crucial stages, business owners ask themselves, how am I going to do this? It's not about doubt. It's about opportunity with the right financial partner. At Sandy Spring Bank, we work alongside businesses in the DMV. It's the best part of being a community bank. With our Flex Business Checking, loans, and lines of credit, we're the here's how for thousands of area businesses. What's your next financial destination? Sandy Spring Bank. Visit sandyspringbank.com/business. Member FDIC.